One of the most common questions that students always come up with is, what is the real difference between marry and get married to? They both refer to the same thing, they both talk about the same thing, and they both have the same meaning. But what is exactly the difference between marry and get married to? Where do we use marry? And where do we use get married to? This is the question that might be flashing through your mind too, which I want to provide a response to. So in today's video, we're going to be focusing your attention on the differences between marry and get married to. Are you ready? Of course you are. So let's get started. Obviously, both marry and get married to have the same meaning and refer to the same thing, the act of getting married to someone. But what are exactly the differences? Well, the differences can fall into two certain categories. The first difference is the difference of formality and informality, which one is more formal, which one is informal. And the second difference is, what do they exactly try to emphasize? What are they trying to focus on? What are they trying to focus the attention of the listener on? So let's focus on these two differences together. Obviously, marry is a verb with the meaning of taking someone as your wife or your husband. And it stands alone as a verb and is directly followed by an object. And when it comes to the difference between marry and get married to, when we're talking about which one is more formal, which one is more informal, which one is better to use in formal situations and the other way around, the verb marry is actually more formal than get married to and is more common when it comes to talking about legal things, let's say legal contexts in books, in literature, and things of that nature. Let me give you two examples. He married a doctor. He married a doctor. In this example, the verb married is followed by its object. He married a doctor. So we don't say he married to a doctor or he married with a doctor. We directly use the object after the verb marry. He married a doctor. The second example, she wants to marry him as soon as possible. She wants to marry him as soon as possible. So after marry, we have the object him, the object of the verb marry. She wants to marry him as soon as possible. So as you saw in these two instances, the verb marry is directly followed by an object and does not need any specific prepositions when you're using it. So marry is actually used directly, and an adverb follows it directly as well, and is more formal and also direct when it comes to talking about taking someone as your wife or husband. All right, now let's get to get married to someone. Get married to someone consists of a couple of words, right? So it's a phrase with the meaning of taking someone as your husband or wife. And get married to, if you want to use an object after it, get married to should be followed by the preposition to. We say you get married to someone. So we don't say you get married someone or you get married with someone. The correct preposition following get married is to. You get married to someone. Let me give you two examples. He got married to a doctor. He got married to a doctor. You see here after get married, we have the preposition to, then we have the object. He got married to a doctor. Whereas if you want to use marry, we should say he married a doctor or he wants to marry a doctor. The next example, she wants to get married to him as soon as possible. She wants to get married to him as soon as possible. You see here after get married, we have to, and after to, we have the object. Whereas if you want to use marry, we should say he wants to marry him as soon as possible without any prepositions. But get married to is actually less formal than the verb marry when it comes to talking about taking someone as your wife or your husband, and is more common in conversations in informal English, and also focuses on the event of getting married to someone. Marry focuses on the person that you want to get married to, but get married to primarily focuses on the event of getting married to someone, the event of marrying someone, the event of the wedding, the ceremony, or emphasizes the action of marriage as a life event. When it comes to formality and informality, marry is actually more formal than get married to. And when it comes to emphasis differences and what each of these two things is trying to focus on, marry focuses on the person that you're trying to get married to, and get married to focuses on the action of marriage, the wedding itself, like the event, and sees the whole act of taking someone as your wife or husband as a life event, or as an event taking place. So marry focuses on the person, get married to focuses on the event, or sees the act of marriage as a life event. Now the question arising is, which one is more common in everyday English conversations? Well, the answer is get married to is more common in everyday English conversations than the verb marry. People usually talk about the event more than the person that someone is getting married to. Let's say someone says, when did they get married? Then you say, they got married last summer. And if you say, who did she marry? It sounds a little bit old-fashioned and formal. And when someone asks, who did she marry? It sounds a little bit old-fashioned and formal compared to, who did she get married to? So who did she get married to is actually more common than who did she marry? So the verb marry is actually shorter and direct and is more formal and is more common in literature, in legal contexts, in news, in religious contexts, and legal situations or formal writings. For example, she married a wealthy family. Instead of saying she got married to a wealthy family, she married a wealthy family. You hear this in news, you hear this in legal contexts or religious contexts, and you hear this when the situation is more formal. Or another example could be, he intends to marry her next year. He intends to marry her next year, which means he wants to get married to her next year, which is common in formal contexts or formal situations. So when it comes to the differences between marry and get married to, marry is more formal and direct and is more common in legal contexts, religious contexts, formal situations, also in news, but get married to is less formal, is more common in everyday conversations, and is more commonly used by native speakers. And marry focuses on the person that you're getting married to, but get married to focuses on the event itself, the wedding, the event, the ceremony, or treats marriage like a life event, or sees marriage as a life event. Now you might ask, which one do native speakers prefer to use? Well, if they want to focus on the person that someone is getting married to, obviously they'd rather use marry. And if they want to focus on the event itself, meaning that when it comes to everyday conversations, get married to wins and has an advantage over marry and is more common. That's about all, guys. So that's all about the differences between marry and get married to. What I want you to do is provide me with some examples of marry and get married to and leave them down below in the comment section. And don't forget to like this video in support of this channel and subscribe not to miss any of my future videos. I'll be back soon.